Hey, what's going on guys, this is AndrewChicken and welcome back to another video. The Desert Omens update is finally here, and in this video we're going to be going over everything you need to know about this brand new patch. We finally have the full update notes for the Desert Omens update, and these include many of the things that we didn't know about in the PTS notes, but they also include some changes that were made on the PTS, mainly to the new champion Omen. So in this video I'm going to be going over those changes, going over some of the stuff that wasn't included in the PTS notes, and also doing a very brief recap of some of the highlights of the balance changes. If you want the full update notes, I'll have a link to that in the description, but with all that being said, let's get started. So up first we have the new champion Omen. I've already made a video showcasing all of his abilities, talents, loadout cards, etc., and so I recommend watching that after watching these brief few changes that they made to him on the PTS. These are very important changes, and ultimately I think very good changes as well. So the first major change is to his ultimate, Heavens Asunder. This ability is now a lot faster. A lot of people were complaining on the PTS that his ultimate just felt so slow and it almost never got value, so they have attempted to fix that by making it so he only has to channel it for half a second now, and then it'll activate after just 1.5 seconds, so this is much faster than the original implementation. However, there is also a nerf to this ultimate. You no longer have damage reduction while casting this ultimate. So originally you had CC immunity and you also had damage reduction, but your movement speed was slowed. Now you still have the CC immunity and you're still slower, but you no longer have the damage reduction, and this is to make up for the fact that it's a lot it's a lot faster to cast this ability now. So yeah, pretty good change to his ultimate. And then the next change is honestly even more healthy for this character. His default talent has been completely reworked. This talent made it so that he would reveal everyone he shot. That's not a joke. He revealed every single person he shot with his brand, and this obviously was unhealthy, so they've reworked it, and this talent seems a lot more fair. Hitting an enemy with Dark Stride, which is his dash, now reduces Gravity Vice's cooldown by 50%. That is his Void Grip, and then the Dark Stride's damage is also increased by 100. So this talent will generally make it so that you can spam his Void Grip more, which seems pretty interesting. I'm not sure how good this new talent will be in comparison to the old talent, but I'm glad to see the old talent gone, because that was honestly just disgusting. Next up we have the Sands of Myth 2 Event Pass, which carries on the torch from the original Sands of Myth 1 Battle Pass many years ago. This Event Pass contains Egyptian-themed skins for two characters who haven't gotten skins in a while, Lilith and Makoa, and it also contains a brand new mount, which is pretty exciting. I already have videos on my channel of these two skins, so if you want to see in-depth gameplay with these skins, showing off the visual effects, sound effects, stuff like that, then go watch both of those videos. Links will be in the description as always. And yeah, this is a pretty standard event pass, got some pretty cool skins in it, and so definitely consider picking this up. Next up we have a few general updates, and first off we have champion lore description updates. So a lot of champions have lore that seems pretty out of date with the current story of the game. Champions like Eevee and Fernando just seem like they're kind of there with no connection to the game and the lore whatsoever. And so these champions are getting lore updates to try and tie them into the story a little bit better and make them make more sense in this game, rather than just being characters that seem like they're added for absolutely no reason. And then champions that have had a lot of lore regarding them since their initial release have also got some lore updates. So like Corvus, he's had a lot of stuff happen to him. I'm sure he's got some new story content here in his lore paragraph now, so basically every champion is getting a bunch of lore updates, and it should be pretty exciting for anyone who cares about Paladins lore. Next up we have an update to the champion loadout orientation. So this is the screen that shows up when you go to edit a champion's loadout. The actual editing interface is the same, but the loadout display is different, and it's made in an attempt to unify the UI across the different aspects of the game. So last patch they changed it so that when you choose a loadout in-game, they are displayed horizontally instead of vertically. Now that change has also been applied to the champion loadout screen in the main menu. So it's just a simple unification aspect, and in my opinion it looks pretty nice. Now we get to move on to the mode rotation. So they're trying something a bit different this patch with mode rotation by rotating modes in the middle of the patch instead of at the start of the patch. So that way there's a bit of a change of pace to players. So at the start we'll still have Payload in the game, but in September they will be rotating out Payload and adding back in Team Deathmatch. So we'll have that very standard Siege Onslaught Team Deathmatch lineup that we've had for basically years, and Payload will have a bit of time to rest and Well, honestly, Payload's been here since the start of Season 6. It hasn't been rotated out yet, so we saw this coming. And they want to make sure that we know that Payload will be returning in the future rotations. So it's not going away permanently, not like Siege Remix, although I assume Siege Remix would also come back in a limited time mode. But yeah, Payload's not going away. It's basically a full regular mode, just like all the rest of these roads. And that means it is a part of the rotation, just like every other mode. So it's being taken out, and we'll have a little bit more information about Payload later, so stay tuned for that. Now we get to talk about the limited time modes. So we have a few new modes, and we also have some greatest hits coming back. So these new modes are Omens of Death, which is basically just the all Omen limited time mode. You guys know how they do these modes whenever they release a new champion, so that's pretty standard. And then they are making a brand new version of Floor is Lava, which is called Floor is Lava Redux. This is basically regular Floor is Lava, but with more traversal options and improved platforms. So this should hopefully be a little bit better. I know Floor is Lava is actually a pretty neat game mode, so glad to see a little bit of an update to that. But then we also have Cards to the Max, Subway, Sunday We Gonna, Rapid Choose Any, Test Maps, It's Treason Then, and my favorite, Hole in One, coming back this update. So pretty cool limited time mode rotation, and these are basically back now that Siege Remix is gone. Last but not least, before we move on to the balance, the ranked rotation is changing. So oof, man, Stone Keep and Jaguar Falls are being rotated out. Ah, that hurts. And then rotated in are Dawn Forge and Frozen Guard. So, yeah. Kind of a bad map rotation this time around for ranked. I guess we'll just have to deal with that, right? Yeah. And finally, we get to talk about the balance. There is actually one balance change here that wasn't listed on the original PTS notes, and that isn't a change to a champion, it's actually a balance change for a game mode. So Payload is getting its anti-healing scaling increase from 5% every 60 seconds to 5% every 40 seconds. This is now in line with Onslaught scaling, but it actually still won't reach 90% by the end of a round, due to Payload's time limit of only 7 minutes. So, this is a good change, but it's not quite the max 90% cauterize that I know some people have been wanting. We'll see if this pans out to be balanced or not. I honestly don't know, but generally a good change, and it's trending in the right direction at the very least. And my hope is that once they take Payload out in September, they'll also be able to work on some bug fixes for, the maps and the game mode as a whole, because it can be pretty buggy. So I would like to see that, but as far as bugs are concerned, it looks like there aren't any bug fixes for Payload in the Desert Omens update. So now we're going to hit a few highlights of the balance changes. I'm not going to talk about everything here, I'm just going to talk about the most important balance changes. Like I said at the start of the video, the full patch notes are in the description, so if you want to look at every minor balance change, you can do that there. But up first is a pretty big change to Androxus. So Darkstalker is getting its individual cooldown for each nether step increased from 5 seconds to 6.5 seconds. It's a pretty big cooldown increase, and it should help to make Darkstalker a lot more balanced. I know a lot of people have been having frustrations with it recently. I've actually been a little bit more frustrated by it recently, and so this is going to make it a little bit more balanced and give him ability that's not on par with Vatu. Because, yeah, that was a bit ridiculous. Next up, we have some pretty nice changes for Betty La Bamba. So, her hail bombs will now no longer apply knockback, which is a really, really good change. It is super annoying to be trying to walk out of a hail bomb and just get knocked around and not really be able to control your own movement. And then Fiery Disposition is also getting a pretty huge nerf, so its damage per tick is almost cut in half, from 0.3% down to 0.175%. So the DOT is going to be doing a lot less now, but obviously the actual impact of her grenades hasn't changed, and so she's still going to be a force to be reckoned with. Corvus is getting some pretty big buffs to his healing, so the healing over time on his Abyssal Reconstruction is going from 350 to 450, so kind of a smaller change, but the big change is to Mark of Fate. The bonus healing has been increased by 5%, and this is both for when you're directly healing someone with a mark, and also when you're indirectly healing someone with a mark. The only time when his healing isn't really going to be that much larger is when you're just healing somebody without a mark on them at all. So this is a pretty big change for Corvus. He's still going to have a buggy teleport, and his ultimate still sucks, and he's still got problems, but these are going to hopefully help him kind of keep up with a lot of the over-buffed healers that we have in the game right now, because his healing, I will say, has been power crept quite a bit, so this is a pretty nice change. In a similar vein to Corvus, we're also getting some huge buffs to Io. So Lunar Leap is getting a decreased cooldown from 12 seconds to 10 seconds, that's pretty nice, but the big change is to her Moonlight. So she is getting a 30% increased base passive regeneration of her from Moonlight, which is a really big deal. It means she's going to have a lot more uptime on her Moonlight now, and she's going to run into fewer issues where she's just out of Moonlight and is spending a lot of time recharging. Her actual healing per second has not changed, but it's just more consistent now, and that is going to be a really, really nice change, and very, very convenient for IO players going forward. Watch out, controller players, your Lex just got nerfed. Discovery got a massive damage nerf, from 25% down to 15%. It's a very noticeable nerf. I noticed it when testing it on the PTS, and this is a very, very great change, because Lex is honestly just such a toxic flank. Nobody likes this guy, so thank goodness that his damage is getting nerfed. This is very, very huge. Nyx is getting 2 nerfs, one of which is actually a bug fix to a previous nerf. So her Rift Slash will have its issue fixed where charged Rift Slashes were still applying 2 seconds of cripple with Show of Force. Apparently, you still had a very, very long cripple last patch. That has been fixed, so it's now properly 1 second. Royal Presence also got its cooldown increased from 11 seconds to 13 seconds. This is a sort of 2-part nerf in the sense that A, it's nerfing her root talent, so that's going to be even less of a savory option now in the face of Show of Force. And then also, her general survivability across the board has been nerfed because she's going to have much less uptime on this ability. She's still going to be very strong with her increased healing passive and the fact that she can cycle this ability with her shield, but she's going to have to be a lot more careful with her ability usage now, and I think this is really going to affect the root talent the most. I feel like might make that talent pretty rare, because you're sacrificing your survival ability already to get that root off, resilience counters it pretty heavily, and now you've got such a long cooldown on it. Like, that's a pretty big deal for the root talent. But yeah, pretty big Nyx nerfs, and it makes sense because she is one of the strongest tanks in the game, right up there with Inara being one of the best. Octavia is getting a bug fix that should ultimately, hopefully, be a buff. It's a bit of a weird change. So, the cooldown of Distortion Field is being increased from 16 seconds to 18 seconds, but the cooldown now begins when the Distortion Field is thrown, instead of when the Distortion Field hits the ground. And this is to address a bug involving the deployment of the field, where basically the field would just get stuck and just not activate, and it wouldn't go on cooldown, and it was a really nasty bug with Octavia. So this is a pretty nice change, I think. I don't play that much Octavia, so I don't know how much this will affect her, but it seems like a generally good change. Terminus is getting a movement speed buff, but don't be fooled. It means nothing. It actually means nothing. You will not notice a difference from this change. So, someone in my comments actually did the math. I'll put it on screen, because it's very helpful. Yeah, this is pointless. This is about a 1% movement speed increase, but when you math it out with other speed buffs, it literally doesn't mean anything, guys. I want a movement speed buff for Terminus where he's like 10% faster than the average champion. This is not it. He is now as fast as Inara. Whoop-de-doo. Vora is getting some pretty huge buffs, but not in the way you might expect. She's actually getting her Obliterate buffed, so it has a decreased cooldown from 12 seconds to 11 seconds, the damage is going up by 100, so from 500 to 600, and Deafening Silence is getting a pretty massive buff, from 1.65 second duration to a 2.5 second duration, giving her now the officially longest silence in the game. So, will we see more Deafening Silence players? I mean, maybe. We weren't able to test this on the PTS, unfortunately, because it wasn't working, but in the actual live servers, yeah, we're going to test this, and it might be pretty disgusting, because that duration does look pretty filthy. But you do have to keep in mind that at the end of the day, Resilience hard counters this, and so you still will probably see more Double Tendril and more of the Dark Siphon talent than you will actually see this. But these base Obliterate buffs apply to every single talent she has, so across the board she's going to be doing a little bit more damage and obliterating a little bit more often, which helps with her survivability, helps with her burst. It's a pretty good change all around. And finally, we get to move on to the bug fixes section. We actually have quite a few bug fixes here, as well as a few fixes for some champions. Sadly, no mention of Imani, who I really want to be fixed. I'll have a video on her soon enough. But yeah, we do have some fixes here, so let's read them out. We have fixed an issue where Deal of the Day would not allow players to redeem their ticket. Fixed a bug where the purchase button for skins showed 100 crystals regardless of the actual price. Fixed an issue where 8 Oceans Ruckus end screen didn't display a preview icon, and where 8 Oceans and Pirate's Treasure IO weapons were swapped in selection icons. Fixed an issue where players could crash lobbies using invalid cosmetic configurations. That's that spray crash, for anyone wondering. which, yeah, thank goodness for that. That was awful. Fixed an issue where longer titles would be displayed off-center on the versus screen. Sorry for those of you who were using those silly titles that just looked so goofy and unpolished and you wanted to troll with them. Yeah, that's been fixed. Ultimately for the better though, it makes the game look more polished. Fixed a bug where occasionally players would select a champion but be unable to customize them. That was a pretty weird bug, glad to see that's fixed. Fixed an issue where auto purchase wouldn't occur on respawn. Auto purchase will now check for potential purchases every time a player respawns. Great bug fix! Still don't use auto purchase, it sucks. Don't fall into that trap as a new player. Learn to buy your items yourself. Fix an issue where players were able to block themselves and lose the ability to read their own messages. I blocked myself recently, so this is a good change. I'm glad to see this, and I know some other people who have been using controller have accidentally blocked themselves, and they're in the same boat as me. So, yeah, hopefully this patch will be able to unblock ourselves, or the game will automatically unblock ourselves, or whatever is going to be done to fix this bug, and we'll be able to see our own messages again, because that was just really annoying, and it's such a silly bug. Fixed an issue on consoles where an irrelevant purchase button prompt appeared in the mastery screen for champions. Addressed a bug where default Betty La Bamba's weapon would occasionally not visibly load in. Congratulations, Raventrick, this bug has been fixed. You're the only person I've ever seen get this bug. But now you'll no longer have this bug. Very lovely. And then we have some champion bug fixes. They're very slight. But Genos... I don't know if you noticed, but in the anniversary update, whenever you would see people play Binary Star Genos, you would occasionally just see them T-posing and like shooting while T-posing, and it was so goofy. And so this has been fixed, for better or for worse. So, yeah, and there was a similar bug with Ying, where her jump animation would no longer play after she casts Illusory Rift for the first time in a game. That has also been fixed, so just some base animation fixes here. But then for Octavia, like we talked about earlier, the distortion field is getting some bug fixes, so it had the first fix in the balance section up there, but we also have this issue fixed where distortion field wouldn't recognize its ability has ended, causing players to be unable to use it again. So, pretty nice bug fix for Octavia, because I know that was probably the buggiest ability she had. Very, very nice. Nice, solid round of bug fixes, honestly. And yeah, that just about covers it for the Paladins Desert Omens update. Let me know what you think about the update in the comments section down below, of course. And yeah, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications from me. I will be uploading a lot of content. I already have uploaded a lot of content on the PTS fixes, but we still got a lot of Omen testing to do. We've got to get Omen's gold skin, of course. We've got a lot of Paladins content to make, so make sure you're following for that. Check out Twitch, check out the VODs channel. I have so many links in the description, and they're all absolutely wonderful. I also want to remind you that we do have a memberships program here on the YouTube channel. If you go underneath the video and you click the join button, you can choose your price to basically become a member of this channel. We have a $2 subscription, we have a $5 subscription, and a $10 subscription, and you can get access to some pretty cool stuff, including pretty detailed 3D renders for your wallpapers that are pretty high quality, if I do say so myself, and yeah, they're pretty nice. So that's a way to support me. I don't usually talk about it, but yeah, I figured I'd bring that up here just to remind you that it's a thing. But yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. I will see you all next time. Peace out.